Hey folks, Daryl here. I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Mack Weldon. You know about Mack Weldon. Mack Weldon is reinventing men's basics. They believe in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. That simple shopping happens at mackweldon.com, MackWeldon.com. You can use promo code TSS, that's TSS for Total Soccer Show, to get 20% off your first order. Here's how much Taylor and I genuinely love Mack Weldon products. We have to coordinate to make sure we're not wearing the same T-shirt at the same time because it started to get embarrassing. We particularly like the men's polo and the V-neck T-shirts. You can find both of those at mackweldon.com, and the promo code again is TSS for 20% off. Hello and welcome to a quick take Clasico Total Soccer Show. First time we've ever done this. I am Daryl Grove. Sitting across the table from me is Mr. Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good.
I got stuck between hey, hi, and hello there, and I went with hey. So that's about where we are.
And we've been in the studio for 4 hours already because we met this morning.
We did.
Watched the Clasico over coffee.
Ate some cheese eggs.
With some hot sauce.
Yeah.
Saw the 2 goals. It finished Barcelona 1, Real Madrid 1. We're going to break it. We've watched a couple of replays, so it's not a clean quick take, right? We rewound a little bit,
but I think we
spotted some things when we did, and that's why this show's worth listening to.
But most of the rewinding happened at halftime, to be fair. So we only went back to watch that last goal a couple different times, so we could take freeze frame images to show just how smart Sergio Ramos is and just how silly Sergi Roberto is.
So the quick take on this game to set you up for what we're about to talk about is lots of very good tactical machinations to close down what the other team were doing from both sides. We'll talk about that. But really this game came down to 2 set pieces and one player on each side being very clever on the set pieces. That's Luis Suarez, who's a sneaky genius, and Sergio Ramos, who's also a sneaky genius. And we'll get into what they did on their set pieces in today's show.
We will, but first I think we should start with maybe a double mea culpa, I guess, because in our preview I think we kind of bought into the narrative that was coming out of both of the different camps, which is that Andres Iniesta is fit, he'll be back. Casemiro is fit, he'll be back.
Jordi Alba's definitely injured, he's not playing.
Exactly. And all wrong. Andres Iniesta started on the bench, so too did Casemiro. Jordi Alba started at left back, right?
Yeah, that was a real surprise. Every preview we read said, he's injured, he's not playing.
Yeah. And instead that was not the case, and I think we thought that meant it would go against Barcelona. I think Barcelona were the one who really executed their game plan more efficiently, even without Andres Iniesta, especially in the first half.
All right, so shall we, before we get down into those set pieces, shall we talk tactics?
Yeah.
This is a fascinating tactical game where both teams had an attacking formation and a defensive formation.
And they were very similar, I would say.
And they were very similar, and weirdly it gets complex, but it starts simple, because I would argue that both teams, in their defensive shape, fell back into a good old-fashioned British 4-4-2.
Agreed.
That was the defensive shape of both teams.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the way the teams were listed at the start of the game, I think both initially were listed as a 4-3-3. I think Madrid's evolved into a 4-2-3-1 by kickoff. But I think you're absolutely right that from a defensive standpoint, you definitely had 4-4-2s.
Yep.
I think for Madrid, that meant that it was, generally speaking, Ronaldo and Benzema staying high. It meant it was Vasquez and Isco dropping in a little bit more. For Barcelona, weirdly, it was like Ivan Rakitic sliding out to right midfield.
Yes.
And then it was Neymar dropping into left midfield, which left Andre Gomes, however you want to go with, and Sergio Busquets in the middle.
Yeah, and to me, Barcelona's is more complicated because it's all about Leo Messi moving around the field, right? So it ends up with Rakitic, who's really a central midfielder, when they're defending, ends up playing essentially right midfield. And we think it was to combat the threat of Marcelo and Ronaldo down that wing, and then Messi doesn't have to do the tracking backward, which kind of makes sense, right? Don't make him do that. Make that Croatian dude do it. He's not even Xavi.
He's not. And what he is good at doing is providing defensive support and defensive cover and blocking. And if you look, I mean, how many times I can think of at least 4 specific examples when Marcelo would get the ball and would try to cross it and it would be blocked. And sometimes it would go out for a corner, sometimes it would just be blocked and cleared, sometimes for a throw-in. But regardless, it
by
meant
either Sergi Roberto or Rakitic, who both had that right side locked down, right? Whether it was Ronaldo or more often Marcelo getting down there.
And when he's finally able to float one in, and that's near the end of the game, that's the one that Ronaldo heads kind of on goal that Jordi Alba, I think without necessarily knowing it, clears out for another corner.
He nearly scored an own goal in the Clasico, I'll say that.
Yeah, that one comes once Rakitic is subbed out. Right. Then you have the change. I think it's Arda comes in. I can't remember who comes in for Rakitic.
Originally, Iniesta comes in and they switch him over to the left, and then you have Gomes doing that Rakitic job, and they flip it again later on when Arda comes on. And we'll talk about Arda later when we talk about who's to blame for Real Madrid's equaliser.
I blame Sergio Roberto in the beginning of the show. It's actually Arda Turan who deserves a fair amount of blame for that goal.
Well, they can also do a double mea culpa.
Yes.
And by the way, when you do a mea culpa for me, it's a you a culpa.
There we go. Asa culpa. That's what I'm going to say then, because it was both of us. So it was Rakitic dropping in at right midfield. Then I think you did have Luis Suarez dropping in again for Barcelona defensively. He would then come back, and basically it was Leo Messi was kind of allowed to do whatever Leo Messi wanted to do.
And Neymar just became a defensive left mid at certain points, right?
And that's definitely the case. But I think I also agree with you that Barcelona's approach to this was a bit more complex, because what you would see is at times they would be Barcelona and they'd have a very, very high back line. At times they would sit very, very, very far back, and you'd essentially have two banks of four. And then what that would do is it kind of stretched Madrid out. So you'd have, like, generally Benzema and Ronaldo committed forward, you'd have Vasquez committed forward and Isco, and all of a sudden, if one of your center backs got the ball, you'd have 40, 50 yards between the center back and then, like, the vast majority of the Madrid players. So Madrid would then have to send numbers back. Once they did, that's when Barcelona would step. That's when they put that pressure on.
Yeah.
And that's why you kept seeing Madrid turn the ball over or Barcelona committing fouls, because they were pressing aggressively.
That's what they would do, right? When Barcelona got the ball, they would still have Mascherano and Piqué back. But then I think Rakitic would still go weirdly wide with Messi coming inside. But the fullbacks, right? Sergio Roberto and Jordi Alba would push all the way up. And you'd have all kinds of numbers up in the box.
Yeah.
And then they would press, and Madrid could not get out. And when they tried to pass out, Barcelona would basically either tackle or foul them, whichever one stops you. Is what they would
exactly.
do.
And I think, and we're definitely giving Barcelona credit, and Madrid deserves some credit too, because obviously it's 0-0 at halftime, and that comes about because Madrid aren't letting anything through. They're basically, they are doing a good job of shutting down Barcelona when Barcelona come forward. But like, there was the one sequence of play that I think we went back and watched where in the span of maybe 40 seconds, both teams turned the ball over twice, and then there was a foul and a free kick. So it was just a lot of
good aggressive defending, right?
Exactly. So I think both teams kind of got it right, but I think Barcelona were definitely executing their game plan more efficiently, because even when Madrid would get the ball, their like good chances up until those final few moments were kind of balls pumped into the box that maybe somebody got on the end of, that Ronaldo chested and shot, or Ronaldo went for a half bicycle and couldn't pull off.
So let's get to the goal.
Sure.
So in the second half, I can't remember the minute, but it's fairly early in the second half, right? Neymar gets fouled down on the left, and the way that he gets there is it's a Real Madrid attack. It's a pretty good Real Madrid attack. But when Barcelona come back the other way, it's Busquets who is able to sort of spin away from, I believe, Marcelo, right? Marcelo's up in midfield, about to win the ball back. Great spin away by Busquets. He does an even better one later on.
He destroys Isco.
That's the one that made the highlight reel, right? But this one is in some ways even better, because it's what leads to the goal. He opens up a bit of space, squares it to Messi. They work the ball out left. Suddenly Neymar is going down that left channel. I think it's Carvajal he's one-on-one with. Carvajal just decides, I'm just going to foul you. Yep. I'll just take the foul here in the corner.
And then complains about it. But it's in both situations, this goal and then Real Madrid's equalizer, it comes about from a foul that I think wasn't necessary. Because it is Neymar, and it is Neymar doing Neymar things, but he's still kind of dribbling with a fair amount of pace towards that end line. And he's probably going to have to cut it back or force in an off-balance cross.
I'm going to say this one is more necessary, because at least Neymar is going forwards with the ball. In the later one that where Arda fouls, that guy's Marcelo's going away from goal. That's
true. That's a very good point. Anyway, you're correct then. So it is a little bit of a shove in the back, an elbow in the back on Neymar by Carvajal. It is a free kick then, and this is where we talk about the set piece specialist. I'm not going to say it's master set piece theater. Again, I think that's your terminology.
It's your regular Luis Suarez.
Yes,
it's your regular Luis Suarez.
Because he's standing in the box, and he starts with what we really need to start learning how to do as players ourselves, is how to stand offside and then get back onside really fast. Because he is in an offside position, which automatically throws off the defender, because then they don't want to cheat and put you onside. So they have to kind of be in an awkward position, because they can't be goal side once that ball comes in, just by de facto.
And it's Lucas Vasquez who is marking him, right, in this situation.
And so as soon as that ball comes in, Lucas Vasquez, I think, aggressively tries to get goal side of Luis Suarez. Suarez, being crafty, knows that's coming and moves away from goal. So basically, Vasquez steps into where Suarez was. Suarez drops back.
Well, I thought it was worse than that. I thought he pushed him.
And then he gives him a push.
Yes.
He does both at the same time. So he basically waits for Vasquez to make that sprint, like to aggressively close that space, steps away. It's almost like a matador, and then does like an ole, and gives him a little bit of a shove as well.
There's a red cape. He just waves out of the way. Yeah.
Except, I guess the difference would be that with a matador, they kind of like majestically get out of the way, and with Luis Suarez, he just gives him a love tap.
This is like if the matador pushed the ball back.
Exactly. Like, ha-ha, take that, bull. Now I'm going to run away.
And then it looks like it's Varane who doesn't doesn't manage to mark Suarez or beat him to the ball. What's actually happening is Varane's reacting because Vasquez has been taken out of the equation by Suarez's cleverness. And you've got to say it, kind of cheating, right? It's that classic, like, Suarez cheating and getting away with it because he knows how far you can push it.
I think it's, if you are a Madrid fan, it's cheating. If you are a Barca fan if you're a Barca fan, it's cleverness. And then if you're a neutral, it's gamesmanship. That's what I'd say. But that's what it is. It's that little extra shove. Also, I think Vasquez is already sort of off balance, out of position a little bit because of that charge to close the space. Then he gets that shove and he's further off balance. Suarez is then able to capitalize. And I think, to your point, Varane is marking Piqué, I believe, and has done a good job, but then has to come across and try to get that header. And really only barely loses out on it, but does lose out. And instead it's a good header from Luis Suarez, back of the net, 1-0 Barca.
And I think it's really worth hitting home that Varane thing because people will only see, if they only see that goal once,
he's the one who gets
Varane's all at the wrong angle. He couldn't beat Suarez in the air. He's supposed to be good in the air, Varane. And I mean, he's trying to do the work of two men.
I mean, we've said it so many times on this show. Many times, I'd say the majority of the time, the last defender who's like in the shot when the goal goes in, it is not that defender's fault, even if it looks like it is. And that's probably the case for Madrid's equalizer because Barcelona make those changes, Madrid make changes of their own to try to make something happen, and instead, in the attacking changes they make, it's the center back who scores.
It's always Sergio Ramos that scores the important headers for Real Madrid. And as we'll break down Real Madrid's equalizer, I think in doing so, even just doing it here in the studio before we recorded made me realise why he scores so many sort of last-minute headers, the one in the Champions League to beat Atletico or to tie with Atletico and then go on to beat them. It's not just about sort of having a big heart and being full of spirit and being determined. It's about cleverness, right? There are many, many clever things that Sergio Ramos does. But first we should maybe talk about how he got the chance to do this.
Sure. So it comes from, as I said, that Ronaldo header that Jordi Alba puts out. Whether or not he meant to, he's the one who blocks it and puts it out for a corner. So it's a corner on
Stegen would have saved that, I think, because that header was kind of tame.
I think it's actually a much more, in watching it a couple more times, I have come around to the idea that it's a much more critical clearance from Jordi Alba because Ter Stegen is actually inside the goal. He's not on the line. He's on the other side of the goal. So even if he does get a hand to it, I think you're right. But it's going to be an awkward, like, I've just got to push it back out.
Right.
Like, it's still going to be chaos in the box, and that can lead to a penalty. It can lead to a goal. It could lead to another corner. Who knows? So it's good work by Jordi Alba, and it's good positioning. That corner comes in, and it basically is hit long, flicked on, and I think it's Marcelo who eventually collects the ball.
Yeah, it's essentially half cleared by Barcelona. Yeah, Marcelo collects it, like, way out wide towards the left, starts dribbling backwards.
But it's what we saw so many times in this game. And sorry to interrupt, but it's basically he gets that ball and has no options, and he kind of has to like dance on the ball a little bit, and then he just can't do anything because he's got people closing him down, so he has to try to turn.
So it's good work. It's good defensive work by Barcelona.
It is, and he's clearly trying to do that turn. So then, if you can picture it, it's basically he's going away from camera. The Madrid or the Barcelona goal is to his right, and he's clearly trying to do that like feint left and then take the ball right, and then see if you can cross it with your left foot back across.
Because time is ticking, right? Time is running out for Real Madrid to get this equalizer.
Yeah, but Barcelona know he's going to do that, and so they cover that. So basically, he just has to continue to dribble towards the end line. They've done a good job. There are 3 Barcelona players, one behind him, one to his right, one to his left. So he's done, except that Arda Turan fouls him. And they can complain all they want. It's a foul. He takes his legs out. And you can't do that, and it's so foolish to do.
He's kind of going for the ball, but he's going way too aggressively. Marcelo, his feet are just too fast. He's Marcelo. I mean, we've come to really love Marcelo as a player, right? There is no... so it was easy to get fouled, basically, because Arda was too aggressive. And I think that is the problem, right? So Barcelona made good subs in bringing Iniesta on. I think we said in studio, that's really mean, bringing Iniesta on to close out the game. Right?
And it was to your point that, like, they're just going to kill them now. And they did. For the next, like, 10 minutes, it was that old Barcelona, like, pass, triangle, and it was like, oh, this is how it's going to be for the rest of the game.
Because Iniesta's smart. Iniesta knows how to handle a Clasico. I would argue Arda does not know how to handle a Clasico. Because it was, 89 minutes of smart, defensive stuff, doing the right thing at the right time, and then you just bring on this hothead. Because this is, I mean, I don't want to, like, rail against Arda, because obviously he's a very talented player. We saw him get sent off at the Euros for something kind of silly, right?
He's a really emotional player. Yeah. And he tends to be governed by emotion. I think he's not the most, like...
And you're very familiar with him from your time in Turkey,
Yeah,
right?
from Turkey, and then when he played for Atletico, I would watch him because when I was in Turkey, that was the team that they would show because there was a Turk playing for them.
That's kind of like how we might watch Swansea because Bob Bradley's
exactly.
coaching, right?
And there was I forget who it was playing for Valencia, but it was somebody who was always around for Turkey. But anyway, yes. So I saw him play a lot, and he is a player who's governed by emotion and maybe not so much reason.
For better or worse, sort of.
For worse in this situation because he makes that foul. It's actually Mascherano who gets the yellow card for protesting.
Is it?
But Barca got 4 yellows, I think 3 for dissent. I could be wrong on that one, but. Then Arda comes back, and it's Arda then is tasked with marking Lucas Vazquez.
Yes.
And they get into a tussle.
So this is the free kick is given away is way out on, say, if you're Real Madrid, it's on the left, right?
Yeah.
Barcelona, you're defending from the right. Barcelona essentially set their defensive line just like a yard up from the
2 yards
penalty.
up,
2 yards up from the top
18,
of the 18, top of the penalty area. And then before it's swung in, there's a whole sort of, I want to call it a melee that is mostly Arda's fault.
Well, before that even happens, because the referee then stops it and makes everybody calm down, it's Arda comes back and he, I think, is trying to deal with Lucas Vazquez, who is doing that standing offside, trying to come back onside. And Arda basically, I think, isn't letting him come back onside and kind of shoves him back in. Vazquez runs around, Arda grabs him, and there's a little bit of a tussle. Sergio Ramos comes across, and I think isn't trying to instigate. I think he's basically sees Arda grabbing his teammate and tries to pull him off, but in so doing, I think does put a hand around the shoulder, but probably touches Arda Turan's neck. So it's basically they're both facing the same way. It's like back to chest, essentially. Ramos reaches around, and then Turan gets very mad.
Because he's doing the you put your hands around my neck gesture, right?
I don't
and
speak
then waving
Spanish,
a finger at him.
but it was either, I'm sure it was Spanish for choke or don't touch me or you know what you did or something along those lines. Yeah, but then he's all riled up and all angry, and it slows things down. It lets Madrid get
Ramos
reset.
is all riled up and a little more determined than he was, I think.
But then you have everybody reset, and because I think Arda gets into it a little bit, now Barcelona are maybe a little bit more out of sorts than they would be.
That's what I was going to say. I think Arda's actions make the Barcelona's defensive line, which has to hold for offside, it makes it a little bit jittery.
Yeah.
Right? And just to set this up for people who maybe don't think about this happening, what happens is you have your defensive line and you hold it and you let the Madrid players go offside, right?
Yeah.
So at one point, Ramos, Vazquez, I think someone else, maybe Ronaldo.
There's definitely three. It's Ronaldo was the other one,
are standing in an offside position. And what you'll do if you're Real Madrid is just before the cross comes in, you'll run back. You'll check back so you're onside when the ball is played, but then you sprint back in the offside position. It's done to confuse the defense, basically, right? So concentration is key. You've got to hold the line, catch them offside if you can.
Yeah, it's what Suarez did for the first goal, except Suarez continued that run.
Yeah.
And then, as I said, Vazquez tried to cheat to try to get back. In this situation, basically what happens is maybe that's what the Madrid players were going to do, and we can focus on Sergio Ramos here because he's the one who does it best.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is Barcelona have their line, and Sergi Roberto, I think, is tasked with marking Casemiro, who's, if he's facing the free kick, is to his left, but is also keenly aware that Cristiano Ronaldo, who can score a headed goal, is standing to his right and is unmarked. But he's in that offside position.
Right?
And so I think Sergi gets nervous about who he's supposed to be dealing with, and so he kind of panics. And I think he tries to cheat, and he's the one who drops a good 3 yards. And because of that, he's the one in the very
broken.
But he's also the one in the very front of that Barcelona line. So as soon as he goes, everyone can see, oh, wait, this line is broken now. And so then you have, I think Mascherano tries to go. Piqué, I think, keeps the line, but, two more people drop.
You see the scramble and the panic, right? As soon as Sergio Roberto drops a bit, everyone's like, it's broken, we got to fall. It's almost it's very like a military thing, right? If you've got, a defensive line and part of it is broken and the opposition, imagine a Viking type thing, they're streaming through that part, then all of a sudden everybody else has to rearrange and panic, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Or if Hodor doesn't hold the door, you have problems. But a person who is equally clever, has that reference.
He'll hold it as long as he can.
says, praising himself, is Sergio Ramos. Because what happens then is Sergio Ramos is standing in a very good position, which is not by accident. He knows where he needs to be.
Yeah.
But in the span of maybe a half a second, and this is why we were talking at the very beginning about how he is so smart and how he's able to get these goals.
It's a type of genius.
In a half a second, I think he's able to see, okay, that ball is coming in. I think it's Luka Modric serving it in. He sees, that ball is coming in. I know I am in relation to the ball being played. Then can read, Sergi is keeping me now onside, so I don't need to check all the way back.
He's watching Sergio Roberto come a bit deep, and he knows that now the offside line isn't 2 yards that way. It's come back this way toward goal, so I'm good.
And you picked this one up, I think he's also keenly aware of the fact that Javier Mascherano is the one who's supposed to be marking him. And because of that standing offside thing that he does, Mascherano's natural move is going to be to run inside to try to mark basically that near post, so he can beat him to the ball if it's a low ball in. So what Ramos does is step forward and block off that run.
With a bit of a strong arm, right? He lifts that left arm, kind of like a really good running back, and just holds him off a little bit.
But that's what's so brilliant is that he doesn't step into him, which could be a foul. He basically just steps forward and then raises the arm,
Yep.
so he knows then that if if Mascherano barges into him, then it's going to be a penalty.
Because then you're just like holding your space as opposed to invading his space.
Absolutely.
Right?
So now in a half a second, he's read where he needed to be in relation to the ball, realized he's onside, realized how to basically negate his marker, and then from then on, I think, and that's kind of what causes, it's the little bit of contact that does happen between Mascherano and Ramos' elbow.
Him down, right?
He stumbles, and then by the time Ramos
he's down like Sonny Liston.
But it's still an impressive header. As you noticed, which is that then he's able to do the work.
I think because he's made that bit of space for himself, right? Yep. He's literally created separation by knocking Mascherano down legally. He's able to then track the ball and adjust his feet a few times. You see him maybe take like 4 little gallops to get in exactly the right spot. Then he's able to attack the ball and put it exactly where he wants it. That's why it's 1-1. That's why Sergio Ramos does this so often. It's because he knows what he's doing.
And we all know the old adage, insult to injury. There's no injury here, but there is insult. Because then the celebration is, after everybody hugs, if you watch, he clearly looks to find Arda, I believe blows him a kiss, does one more thing, and
does
then
like a phone call.
He does give me a call, blows him a kiss, and then salutes him,
Yep.
and then runs off. And it's just the most like, oh, you jerk. But also, I wish I were that awesome to be able to pull off something like that. And I have to say, if you really want to rile up the opposition, blowing them a kiss is the greatest thing you can possibly do. Don't get words with them. Don't shove. Just don't react at all and blow them a kiss if they start to jaw at you, and it will drive them insane.
So I'm sure Arda's going to be in some trouble with
I
Luis
would venture
Enrique.
to guess he will be.
I think if Sergio Roberto, if Luis Enrique watches the tape, I think he'll be in trouble.
I think they will because, I mean, that header comes in the 90th minute, so the foul then occurs in, the 89th, 88th, depending on the scrum, probably the 88th. So, I mean, that's 87 and a half minutes of well-executed game plan, and then 1 minute of bad challenge from Arda, and then a half a second of, I'm panicking, I'm going to break that line, and that's all it takes. And that's why Real Madrid are amazing when it comes to having those late equalizers and those late opportunities. But it also shows how cruel of a mistress this soccer game can be.
And the situation now is there's still a 6-point gap between Real Madrid and Barcelona. Barcelona may have lost second place. Depends what Sevilla do this weekend. That game hasn't happened at time of recording, so they may be behind them as well.
Or it may have, and we just don't know. I don't know.
Also that.
I don't know.
This was an earlier kickoff, right? Unusual. That's why it probably hasn't happened.
Good point.
Also, the head-to-head situation. Isn't that the first tiebreaker in La Liga?
It absolutely is.
And now Barcelona at home have failed to beat Real Madrid. So they may be in a head-to-head deficit after the... I want to call it the second leg. I know it's not the second leg, but
it's got
after
the
the away
leg.
game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, at the Bernabeu.
There you go. That is your Clasico review. If you have any thoughts on it, please tweet them to us or send them to contact@totalsoccershow.com. Final reminder that today's show was sponsored by Mack Weldon. Go to mackweldon.com. Use the coupon code TSS. That's the letters TSS for Total Soccer Show. You get 20% off your first order.
Alrighty.
Taylor Rocco, thank you for spending the morning watching soccer with me and then doing a Clasico quick take.
Hey, buddy. Right back at you.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, listeners. We hope you enjoyed the show. We probably won't be back on Monday. We're still a little bit sick, right? We're trying to sort of go easy and not burn ourselves out.
This is true.
All right, but thank you for listening today, and we'll talk to you again very soon.